A silly mistake made memories of murder much more meaningful for me. I missed the opening subtitle that said it was based on a true story. So I watched the whole thing as a normal investigation thriller, and it had all the tropes of a whodunit, except even at the very end, you never find the killer. Because I didn't know the real world context, I interpreted the ending as a creative choice Bong Joon Ho made to make a statement. That is, the film did find the killer, but not inside the world of the film, but outside of it.
The very last shot of Memory's murder is the detective. He is watching the camera.
It was a moment where I felt seen in a haunting way. I felt sort of exposed, almost like the director is trying to see if I, as in the audience, recognizes the killer inside ourselves.
But I thought that if the murderer is sitting somewhere in the audience, I wanted him to lock eyes with the detective who was so desperate to catch him but ultimately failed.
When I looked up the interviews later, I realized Bong Joon Ho actually wanted to just look into the eyes of the real killer. So, does that make what I felt irrelevant? I don't think so, because he was just answering a question at a film screening.
But only one person I could not meet is murderer. Yeah.
And knowing the kind of filmmaker Bong Joon Ho is, I don't think he would reduce his full film to one man. He is very much aware that while there is only one real killer, thousands of innocent people are going to lock eyes with his protagonist. He definitely built up the narrative for that, because what I felt was not provoked because of that single shot. It was everything that had led up to that moment. In this video, we will try to really understand what Bong Joon-ho is trying to say in this film. And I hope you watch the video till end. It really helps the video to reach a wider audience. The movie is full of casual moments that objectify women.
너희 딱지 뭘로 접었어?
The film initially doesn't even emphasize them. It just seeps them into regular conversations to show the characters' perspectives.
뭐 섹시하다든지 아니면 뭐 예쁘다 뭐 이런 느낌들 있죠?
Then it slowly starts to elaborate on these moments until they become very haunting in a way that makes the viewers uncomfortable. Initially, they are subtler, like the way Detective Park questions suspects.
남자들끼리 툭 까놓고 새끼.
The words man to man are interesting here because he's about to ask that kid a pretty derogatory question.
어떻게 막 저진 안 만져볼까 뭐 이런.
When the kid denies doing anything, Park goes one step ahead.
그래서 죽였구나. 죽여놓고 이렇게 만져보려고.
아닌데.
You might say Detective Park is talking like that only because it's an investigation, just to make the kid confess in case he actually did something. But this kind of language or thinking is not only confined to their investigation, you can also find it in the way they talk to each other. Look at this instance where Park's chief asks him to recognize between an abuser and the victim's brother just by looking at the two guys sitting in the station. It's not just what he's asking, it's the way he is. The chief demonstrates the position in which the brother found his sister with the abuser. The chief literally looks like an ignorant kid who's finding it all amusing. Here's another instance. Detective Kwon is wearing a red dress to catch the killer. Detective Cho says something.
그래도 뭐 그 덕분에 기억이 이제 빨간 치마도 입어보고 화장도 딱 하니까 또 완전히 딴 사람 같네 이제.
And to that, Detective Park literally checks if he's hard. Now, these instances, as I said, were much more subtle as they all occur in somewhat the first part of the film. But as we go ahead, all this becomes more and more on the nose. I think everyone remembers suspect number 2, the one who visits the murder scene at night to do this. And it's not just this, he says something even more intriguing.
근데 말이죠. 요즘에는 말이에요. 이런 잡지들보다도 우리 동네 실제 사건들이 훨씬 더 세요.
The incidents he is referring to as arousing are actually the disturbing and dehumanizing killings of women. But that's kind of the point of the film. It's trying to portray that how this whole event is kind of objectifying women. You can see this even in the way the killer commits his crimes. In the scene where the detectives record Kong Ho's confession, he explains in very detail how the killer did it.
향수기 하얀 브라자로 먹으러 가.
Pay attention to the way it involves women's clothes.
스타킹, 스타킹, 스타킹 바뀐 걸로 향수기 빤스를 모자처럼 쓰게.
There's a sort of eroticism attached to it, which makes them look like objects for people's amusement. It seems Bong Joon Ho is trying to say that we might not know the person behind this, but we do know the psyche behind it, which is embedded in the way he is doing it. And the film investigates that very psyche, both in the detectives and in the world around them. But Bong Joon Ho not only portrays the thinking that objectify women, he also portrays the lack of introspection that leads to it.
야, 집에 가라.
The movie opens with a boy talking to a boy, essentially, because the two characters are infantile.
One of the subplots of the film is the ego fight between Detective Park and Detective Seo.
고기도 좀 드시고 말씀을 하세요. 난 탄고기 안 먹는데.
Most of these moments are portrayed in comic ways to both make them entertaining and to show the characters as a little childish. They constantly taunt each other as well.
현장 버전 이빠이 해봐야 어차피 나오는 거 하나도 없네.
These two detectives still stay on a sort of lighter side, but Cho's masculinity has been portrayed on an even darker shade. Throughout the film, we see him beating down people. Initially Kwang Ho, then in a protest he is beating a girl, and later in the bar he again attacks a girl. But the film subtly gives it back to him. In that bar fight, Kwang Ho puts a nail in his leg. Then it turns out that the leg needs to be cut off. The exact same leg he used to beat Kwang Ho and all other people with. Now compare these detectives to the woman officer Kwan. When these two are fighting, she is the one who's trying to point out that the radio is playing the song. It's also her who points out this pattern of the murders and the song. But when she shares her observation, this is the kind of reaction she gets.
Miss Kwon, nice! Good idea!
Yet, she is the one who dressed up at the night to catch the killer, gets the woman's confession, and finds the address of the third suspect. But despite being much more sensible and observant, throughout the film we see her doing redundant work, like putting the pictures in the notebook, developing photos, or serving them coffee. I'm pointing this out because Bong Joon Ho has meticulously weaved this thing together to slowly lead people to introspect. Bong Joon Ho doesn't leave the film by portraying these masculine characters. He ensures that we contemplate. From midway through, the film changes its tonality. Now we see less of the characters' drama and more of the crime. When these two are fighting, while Detective Kwon tells them the song is playing. The next scene starts with a shot of a murder and then moves to a forensic lab where one of the most disturbing scenes unfolds.
이거 복숭아 조각인데?
It's a scene that shakes everybody,
전부 9개.
both in the film and outside of it. Meanwhile, Bong Joon Ho builds another narrative arc around this young girl. We notice her first at the outpost with her friend. Then we keep seeing her in the film. The time when the three detectives chase the guy from the crime scene, we see her in the background at her home. Then we see her again at school, and this time she has a whole conversation scene.
현수 얘기 누구한테 들은 거냐?
All this because director Bong wanted audience to register that girl as just an innocent school kid in their head. But then, this time, he does not directly cut to the next day. He shows the killer carrying her tied up. He even shows his tools, then uses a rack focus to contrast them with the innocent girl. The next day on the crime scene, we hear this line.
가슴에 면도칼로 그은 자상.
That simple line shakes us because of the narrative arc he built. Then something happens that really shows what the point of the film is. It's a scene that tries to give some dignity back to the girl. The killer essentially used them like an object, trying his fancies and throwing them away when he's done. This little gesture, I think, is director Bong's way of saying how to fight that psyche by simply treating people like people. Bong Joon Ho paints a picture where these men are trying to find a monster. As Seo says, the person they are looking for is the opposite of this kid, but they never find him. They get so desperate, but they don't find him. Because the killer in the film is not a person, it's the very psyche. It's the essence of something these people don't seem to introspect. The ending scene is the moment where director Bong touches on this. Park asks the girl what the guy looked like. She says, just an ordinary guy, not a monster, just someone ordinary like us. Then he thinks and looks directly into the camera. It's the moment when director Bong demands that introspection. And that's what makes Memories of Murder a masterpiece. It's not just about who did what, but why does that happen? So that was my interpretation and perspective on Memories of Murder. Do let me know if you have a different perspective. We'll see you in the next video then. Have a nice day. Bye.